But how much olive oil can you sell to clean up the atmosphere? It's just not enough.
Want to talk about this concept, the scale of carbon removal.
Solving the climate crisis and carbon removal, it's actually two problems. The first, process problem. Do you remove carbon and do with it? But the second question, it's a material handling problem. Are you going to do lots of it? And are you going to do it cheaply?
This is Bite Size Climate Tech, Season 2.
So today I have André with me. He is the CEO and founder of Blue Skies Minerals. And before he founded this company a little bit over a year ago, he has been working in the waste management industry and helped to clean up the water. And now he has switched to help to clean up the air.
I was comfortable. I designed treatment systems to detoxify water. But I have two sons, and I can't tell them I didn't do enough to address climate change. So that's why I quit the other business and I started this one.
I think it's always good to have people who have this kind of passion and motivation to help us to fight the climate change. And today, Andrew specifically want to talk about this concept, the scale of carbon removal. Most of us, we know those numbers, like 10 gigatons. It's just very hard for us to comprehend how big it is. And you wanted to put it into perspective in terms of the mass, like how do you want us to visualize it?
I keep hearing 50 gigatons a year, 5 years from now, or whatever. And it's important and it's needed because there's way too much carbon in the atmosphere. But I started to look at, the solutions that people are proposing. Like olive oil captured carbon. But how much olive oil can you sell to clean up the atmosphere? It's just not enough. Solving the climate crisis and carbon removal is that it's actually two problems. The first, process problem. Do you remove carbon and do with it? But the second question, it's a material handling problem. Are you going to do lots of it? And are you going to do it cheaply? We got to remove lots and lots and lots of carbon out of the air. Where are we going to put it? What are we going to do with it? And then when we start thinking about how much we have, big holes in the earth or big underground reservoir down deep into the earth, or someplace where we have to store it safely. And the problem that we look at is the problem of how do we do it, but how do we do it in a big scale?
Earlier, you were showing me this photo.
It's a lot for the mining industry. And mining, they handle millions of tons of material per year of rock. So that's one of those industries that's big, the kind of thing that we're talking about we want to do with climate change, right? This photo, what it shows is a small portion of the mining waste that is stored at that mine site. They take the rock, blast it, they extract the valuable mineral, and then there's a residue, there's a waste, so they have to store it. So this is a place where they store it. This is about 1/10 of the full size of the whole thing. The whole thing contains 700 million tons of waste. It's just enormous. And it took 35 years to fill this up. And now we're talking about doing 5 of those every year, thinking in these terms, in terms of huge things like this.
100 million ton of waste is not the full size that you showed there, right? That's
No. What I showed is about 50 million tons. The 700 million tons took 35 years to fill because we've already mined the rich deposits. So the less rich ones, we have to take out even more material, even more waste to get to the same electricity that we need for the energy transition. We need copper for copper lines. So we need like 5 times more copper than we have had. So they will mine that much more. They will generate that much more waste.
The reason why you're focusing on the mining industry, you have so many mine waste there that you use that as your feedstock for your company.
My thinking was, since they already handle millions of tons of waste, why don't I just add some of the carbon that I can draw out of the atmosphere and mix it together with the waste. And that way I'll be able to handle millions of tons of carbon and have it dealt with.
So scalable solution, which is also which is also beneficial for the mining industry.
That was the second part for the carbon in their waste.
Oh.
they're going to turn around and say, well, what do we get out of this? Why should we do this? Business, what are you asking us?
Yeah.
But if I actually benefits them, then they'll say, sure, we want to do it. And at the same time, they handle the millions of tons of CO2. So I solve both problems. We take atmospheric CO2 and we mix it with the mining waste. We add some materials and it forms a paste, like a toothpaste, but it behaves like a cement, so it'll solidify. We pump that paste and we mix it together with waste rock. That's the rock that's blasted, that has no value whatsoever. So we mix it together and then we deposit it in a great pile like they normally do. It'll cementify in place. And that's it. That's the process. So the carbon that I took from the atmosphere is now converted into a carbonate mineral, and it's stored with the rock. And it's stored safe and solid because it's kind of cementified with all the mining waste.
I see. Actually, to solve their problem.
It does. And the way that we do it prevents the waste from reacting with the atmosphere. Like when you dig it from deep into the earth and you bring it to the surface, now you suddenly expose it to the air and to the water. It didn't have that before. And that's causing chemical reactions that release toxic metals that pollute our waters. That's what I spent 35 years, 33 years treating. But now I have a solution that prevents it. If I took carbon dioxide and I turn it into a mineral and I put it into one of those mine pits, I would fill 200 of them every year. An average size pit, I could fill 200 of those each year. And then I would remove 5 gigatons per year. But then if you're going to operate on that scale, it'll cost a lot of money. When people decide that they want to put money into this, they will need to be convinced that this works, that they're putting so much money that it's a big risk for them. So you will need to prove your technology, demonstrate so that the investor is satisfied that, yeah, this thing works. Regulators are going to say, hold on a second. How do we know that this thing works the way you say? How do we know it will not pollute the landscape? So they need to be convinced that this thing works. And the mine operator that you're asking, in my case, to use their mine facilities to store the carbon, they want to be convinced that this is not a joke, that this works, right? Yeah. So that requires a lot of studies. To develop these technologies will take time, but we don't have a lot of time.
Yeah, we don't.
We need to move fast, and then we need to develop them to satisfy that they work at the scale that's required. That's the problem we have to solve. We take the CO2 and we form minerals that make the sky blue. We make blue sky minerals.
It's a beautiful way to put it.
How would you explain this to an 8-year-old?
We're trying to clean up the air because we have too much CO2. We don't know exactly how to do it. It's a little bit like you were saying, when you go on a beach and you build a sand castle, you kind of mix the sand and the water, but as soon as the next wave comes, it just washes it out. Yes. So we have to mix else, we add something else. And now it makes it sticky, now it makes it stick together. It doesn't go back to the air like before, it actually stays there. Take the air, we mix it with other stuff so that it sticks together. And then we store it in a way on the side where it can stay put, and we just put it there. It'll just stay there. And we can do it lots. And then we have blue skies.
For 8-year-olds, they could comprehend.
Okay.
And then the next part is you're going to answer a question from a previous guest.
What do you think is the single biggest thing an individual can do to help fight climate change?
We have to convince government that they're not doing enough. Things are getting worse and worse and worse, and we all see it. Government says, yeah, but we're trying our best, doing the most we can. At the same time, they're still producing more oil and they're still keeping the economy going the same way it is. And things keep getting worse. We need to convince government that stop doing things the way you're doing. Like stop develop new oil, stop giving permits for these things. Stop, we will not allow you to explore for new oil deposits. We can't afford to. Stop.
Yeah. To leave a question for the next guest.
We know that things are getting worse with our climate. When are we going to know it can't get any more worse? What does that limit look like?
a powerful question.
But we have to ask that question to ourselves.
Thank you for coming to the show.
Expressed by our guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the official position of Bite-Size Climate Tech. We thank our guests for sharing their insights and experiences, and we thank you, our listeners, for joining us on this journey. Until next time.